Hi. Just finished watching the huge debate between Javed Akhtar and Mufti Shamail Nadvi. Uh, and I couldn't contain myself and couldn't keep myself from speaking upon the subject. So, actually, since yesterday, my mother was telling me constantly, oh, there is this Mufti, everybody's saying he destroyed Javed Akhtar in a debate. So I I think one of the coolest old men of India is Javed Akhtar, and I am a big fan of Mr. Akhtar in so many ways. And uh, but that said, uh, it wasn't like I was a little hurt. Okay, somebody destroyed Javed Akhtar in a debate, but I was also kind of uh, thinking about debate in itself. No, I'm not a big fan of debates. The thing is, well, apart from the fact that you see the debates like you see in India on television, uh, debates in themselves are kind of a fallacy because what do you achieve through them? Like, I think the main objective of convincing somebody or giving arguments should be their betterment, or somehow convincing them of something that you think is right, or you know is right. So as an individualist, I am a very staunch individualist. I first of all do not believe in convincing people, mostly in most of the things, unless there is a crime or something. And debate is if convincing is Hollywood, then debate is pornography. No, it is the pornography of convincing. It is the convincing in its most obscene form, where you are trying to attack the other person with the hope of convincing that person of your worldview. That person has come precisely to fight you, even if you silence them with your arguments. Any party against any party, even if they silence the other person with their arguments. Nobody ever says, oh my God, you just opened my eyes. I hadn't been able to see this fact till date. I've never seen that in any debate. Even conversations where people are trying to convince the other people of their worldview, nobody ever says that. Nobody ever says, oh my God, I never thought that way. You just changed me forever. That doesn't happen. So, in my opinion, debates in themselves are kind of a lost cause. They are entertaining to some people. To me, they are kind of, they give me anxiety because I know the view of person X, I know the view of person Y, and still they are debating. Like, what are they debating? There can be no debate. But then I think debate mainly was invented with the purpose of entertainment of the crowd. It's a kind of circus. And if you look at it that way, Indian media is not that wrong in doing it in the most obscene way possible. So let's come to the debate in question and why I couldn't contain myself from speaking on it. So I watched the debate. Now, my argument always against things is, if you don't like something, if you are hurt by something, if something uh, gives you a certain discomfort, what you need to do is know it better. First of all, there are things that are bad in themselves, but mostly it's our opinion of things, right? So if you are not liking something, if you are scared of something, if you are judging something, I think knowing it better will give you a better perspective. Uh, so when my mom said this had happened, and everybody was talking about this supposed debate, I thought the best thing to do right now is watch it and see what really has happened. So I watched the debate. Like 10 minutes ago, we might have finished it. And I noted everything down, everything that I think is important that I should speak about. So let's take them one by one. Okay, another problem before beginning this that I had with the debate is, on one side there is a person who is supposedly an atheist. Well, he is an atheist if the the popular definition of atheism is accepted. And on the other side, it's not a believer, it's a believer in one certain religion. No, the scholar is Muslim, and that will always happen. You will not find somebody who argues in favor of all religions. No, no, but Buddhism says this. No, no, but Islam says no, but Sikhism no, because most of the people don't know that much. Also, religion by nature is either this or that. It's binary. No, you don't believe in others. That's most religions. Some religions are different or have been different historically. They're changing, like Hinduism, where you could be anybody and still be a believer in Hinduism, but or Buddhists who don't have a god. That said, religion in itself is based on the idea that other religions are fake, they are not right. So technically, a debate between atheist and a believer is not going to work ever, because the believer will be believer of a certain religion. The atheist will always be a general atheist. No, he doesn't believe in any of the religions. So I think that fallacy occurred, and it had to occur. There was no way out. You could bring a Hindu Pandit or you could bring a Christian priest, and still it would have been the same. Now, before commenting on the arguments as such, I'm going to say that initially, at least, it seemed like we were watching an Indian boxer fighting a boxing match in Pakistan. No, like, don't get triggered with the names, but what I'm saying is public cheering for one party. That is, again, if debate is the most obscene form of convincing, then this kind of debate, I will not say the most obscene, it's not really a nice debate, because people are cheering for one party and the other party gets no cheers from the same people, because the number of persons believing in X idea among the two ideas being fought upon or debated upon are more in the audience. No, so now let's go to the argument. So this Mr. Shamail Nadvi, the Mufti, I'll call him Mufti, and Javed Akhtar, we'll call Javed Akhtar, or whatever in the moment we call him. Uh, So Mufti begins with arguing against atheism, but not in favor of God. So the and it's understandable. See, this Mufti is a very young person. He's doing his doctorate. He's still a student. And I remember my days as a student. I loved debating. It was so difficult to tolerate me in tolerate my company, because I would debate with everybody on everything, and I was knowledgeable, believe me. So students and young people have more zeal to debate, and he was very well prepared because of that, also because he was also going to debate Mr. Akhtar, who is a very famous person relatively. Mufti became famous today after debating Javed Akhtar. So that kind of famous I'm talking about. Javed Akhtar is that kind of famous that you debate him and you become famous. But I'm not like, I have nothing against Mufti. He's a very well behaved person. Uh, and especially if you look at religious people these days, or I wouldn't even say these days, you look at religious people, they generally argue through sword or through guns. I am not talking about Muslims or Hindus or Jains or Buddhists or Christians. Religion itself generally doesn't like to talk on the same term, because it begins with the idea that I am the person of God and you're not. So I'm here to make you a person of God. This again, the idea of preaching, but so he, given all these things, all things considered, he was a very well behaved person, so I have nothing against him. But he began his argument, instead of, and he looked very prepared in that, because he might have studied Javed Akhtar. Javed Akhtar didn't have enough knowledge about Mufti, because Mufti is young and also he's not famous, and ideas of Javed Akhtar are there for anybody to see, read, and process. So Mufti was prepared, and he comes and he argues against atheism. So he cancels, according to him, he cancels the ideas of atheism, and he feels that he does it really, like he achieves what he wants, which I don't know he did or not, but the idea is, it doesn't prove that there is an existence of God. So let's say there are so many isms which are outside religion itself. For example, there is agnosticism. Agnosticism is, you don't really claim that you know, but that person is not really a believer. If you break atheism, it doesn't prove there is God. It can also prove that agnostics are right. Actually, they are. I myself consider myself agnostic. I'm not really an atheist. I hear it might seem that I'm an atheist or a believer, but I'm not. I'm a person who says he doesn't know much. So I try to know more and more. And so that's why I'm saying, if you prove that atheism is wrong, it doesn't prove that God is right or God exists. You're just proving that claims about the true nature of universe, claims about existence, claims about God from either side are not logical. Like, the believer says there is God and this is how he looks like, or this is how he behaves, and the atheist says there is no God and I know this is the nature of the universe. So you prove the atheist wrong, you may not prove yourself wrong, the atheist can prove you wrong also very easily. And in that case, the other argument does not win, because you may prove atheism is wrong, but that still leaves the door open for the idea that we don't know what is right. You may prove that God doesn't exist, but still it leaves the door open for we may don't know what exists. So that argument, I think, was a young man's argument. I 20 years ago would have begun that way had I been arguing for the belief in God, and he did it very politely. I like that. That's again, I'll keep saying these things again and again, because politeness from religious people is a rare commodity these days. You don't get it. Now, the second part that I want to speak about is Javed Akhtar argues against the idea of God in general, not Islamic God. So, okay, if you are dressed in Islamic garb and if you use the title Mufti, people believe that you are arguing, although for the existence of God in general, but your perspective is Islamic, Judeo Islamic perspective, Abrahamic perspective. And that's not an assumption, it's true. That's if you have studied anything to support your claims of God, then the thing that you have studied is Islam in this case, no, or any religion who the debater comes from. In this case, it was Islam. So Javed Akhtar argues against the idea of God in general, not the Islamic gods, which might have uh, created a. It might have actually. It felt like the even the audience was affected, but so Javed Akhtar's arguments are against belief. Mufti's arguments are also not really Islamic because I guess we didn't uh, notice anything where he quotes the Quran, or so it's not really. I wouldn't say he was trying to prove there was an Islamic God, at least in this debate. But uh, I found Javed Akhtar's argument a bit more broad in its idea. No, religious people always assume certain things. When they're talking, they say, okay, something has been created. Oh, so they have already this vocabulary of creation, creating, creator, and they assume that that is from where we are going to argue onward. But sometimes that very vocabulary is questioned, and in that case the religious person sounds a bit like sounds like they didn't understand what was said, and that happened in this argument, I felt. Mufti speaks on the number 3. Mufti speaks on the idea of an inherent sense of justice coming from religion. Okay, he speaks on the sense of justice coming from religion. I If we look back on the history of humanity, irrespective of which, not only which religion, but which family of religious beliefs they followed, there has always been some sense of justice, irrespective of anything, even among atheists. China technically is atheist, communist countries are atheist. He mentioned North Korea. I imagine in front of Mr. Kim Jong Un, he wouldn't say that, but it's easy to mention people and things when they are not present because you are not you, you are protected. No, so they are also like the communist states. I am saying they're atheist, but they also have a sense of justice. It's not only religion that gives you a sense of justice. Religion maybe sometimes gives you a sense of justice, maybe sometimes it sabotages the common sense of justice that people have and makes it into religion, and that seems very probable, because otherwise why a person who was born in the Inuit community in Alaska also have a sense of justice. And it's, to tell you the truth, it's not very different from somebody born in Saudi Arabia or India. The sense of justice in some things, in some details, it might not be the same, but sense of justice around the world, irrespective of your culture and religion, has common things. And those religions are not, they cannot even be called religions in the same sense of the word, because some are belief systems that oppose each other. They are not one family. Yes. So atheism is actually arguing against all those, and they are not arguing against each other in this case, no, in this debate. But generally they argue against each other, they kill each other. Come on, arguing. So that is what I think. The inherent sense of justice doesn't come from religion. He gave this argument. This argument has been given. It reminds me of the conversation between Hisham Abbas and Dr. Jordan Peterson, and there also this topic was talked about. And I don't think the inherent sense of justice comes from religion. I think we have it, and we can give it a garb, legalize it, or sanctify it under religion, but I still think that it's something we already have. We are born with it. Why? I don't know. Javed Akhtar says, in general, and in this debate also, he said at some point that in order to keep the world functioning rightly, may or may not be true, the world is not functioning rightly, so maybe that can be an argument. Okay, that's why we have sense of justice. I would again go there and say I don't know why do we have sense of justice, but religion gives it. Not true. I am trying not to like argue against any certain religion, because the debate in this sense was quite successful. It didn't talk about any particular religion. Now we go to the next point. Okay, so this point actually enraged me a little bit. Mufti Sahab equated maths and religion because neither talks of dinosaurs. Javed Akhtar says, your religious books talk of Genesis, of creation, know how everything came into being, but they don't talk of dinosaurs. And Mufti really, he did it on camera. He said, maths is also something that doesn't mention dinosaurs, and science believes in maths. Come on, maths is also not talking about Genesis. Maths is also not talking about creation. Maths is also not talking about how a person should behave in society. Maths is not talking about the sexuality of people, but all the religious books are. They are talking about these things. How can you say that if they don't mention dinosaurs, then they are same as maths? You did it on television, man. I mean, you are young, but come on. Did you? Hey, you said it. Anybody can watch. You did it on TV. Not good. No, this is so foolish, because all the religious books keep talking about things they shouldn't talk about. They talk about people's sexuality. They talk about, I don't know, how the world came into being. They talk about how life was created, but they don't talk about dinosaurs and other beings that disappeared from the prehistoric earth. And maths doesn't talk about it because it's not you can say Constitution of India doesn't talk about dinosaurs. It's not the purpose of Constitution of India. My God. Oh, sorry. I said I was not going to say that I believe in God or not. My God was just a figure of speech in this case. So let's not talk more about this because I am getting angry. Okay, another thing. At one point of time, Javed Akhtar used the word fatwa and said, Vatican has issued fatwa against XYZ idea. Now, this is a problem. Do you think Arabic is a Muslim language? I don't know. I don't. It's just a question. because Yazidis also speak Arabic, Druze also speak Arabic, many Coptic Christians speak Arabic. So, do they pay some uh, interest to Muslims for speaking Arabic? No, they don't. And the word fatwa is language, it's not religion. So, Mufti says, what does Vatican have to do with fatwa? What is fatwa? Fatwa is an order issued by a religious body. In Islam, it is called fatwa because in Arabic it is called fatwa. What if Arabs are talking about Vatican? What word will they use? And hence Javed Akhtar used Javed Akhtar. Actually, I don't know. It's like, this is not for Mufti, but most of the comments and ideas I have read on social media, because Mufti was very respectful. This is for them. That it seems like a conversation between a 40-year-old philosopher and a 12-year-old, I don't know, religious enthusiast. It seemed like that. Because, see, if Arabs are going to use the word for Vatican issued in an order, in Christianity the word is bulla. The Latin word is bulla, and it's very similar to fatwa. It's bulla papal, no, the order issued by the Pope, and that is fatwa. If you translate it to Arabic, it most probably will be fatwa. No, but Mufti will not believe it because fatwa is an Islamic word. So is Iraq. I don't know. So a little uh, immature, this this conversation. In at this point it turned a little immature, and then I also wasn't as excited after that. But let's see what else. Mm, okay, so Mufti also, another thing, Javed Akhtar gave an example of the kettle. We believe there is a kettle around. So Javed Akhtar, what he was doing is he was explaining the idea of the burden of proof. Burden of proof. You make an argument against something that is established or that is visible, that is natural. The burden of proof is on you. So let's say uh, I say this hand is moving because of my muscles. If I have to prove where are the muscles. You cannot see the muscles right now. If you ask me, how can you prove this hand is moving because of my muscles? I have the burden of proof. I have to prove how. I cannot ask you, how can you prove it is not because of muscles? Come on. That's not something you do. Burden of proof, the educated people, and that again brings me back to the idea of religious education and education in general. Educated people means people educated in all the streams that, or uh, non-religious streams that uh, uh, encompass all kinds of studies. Religious education teaches you about religion, and generally one religion. Generally, no, it is always one religion, where whichever religion the religious institutions is based on. So he doesn't understand, poor soul, the idea of burden of proof, and he tries to make fun of it, and he makes fun of himself in the process. Again, he doesn't become disrespectful or insulting in any way, and that I appreciate a lot, especially from a religious person. Now, I the last argument was against the rape argument where he says rape cases are less in uh, Middle East than in Europe, despite Europe being atheist and Middle East being religious. Not entire Europe is atheist. One thing. Second, in Europe you have Vatican and very religious people. Another thing, which Ursula, the lady who questioned in the end, the SFI girl, she asked this question already. So that is precisely what I wanted to say. That are the cases of rape in Middle East reported as easily as they can be reported in Europe? Are women going to talk about this to the police in Middle East and the so-called religious zone? No, they are not. They are not. Hence, don't give the argument of rape cases being registered more in Europe. They let you register. Come on, you don't. So, and most religious places are like that. I'm not even saying uh, he was giving his arguments because obviously again religious education as opposed to education in general. But even if you take all the religions, they are not necessarily very encouraging of female rights. So uh, that was the idea. And well, the last argument was already this. And last, finally, I want to comment about some things like when he when Javed Akhtar mentions ISIS and he says this man equates this to ISIS. This Javed Akhtar says in ISIS women were subjected to terrors, and Mufti says, "Oh, this man equates us to ISIS." He was not equating you to ISIS. That's ad hominem. It's a fallacy. In Latin, we call it ad hominem, an attack on the person when you cannot fight his argument. And that is what happened there. Our Mufti Sahab ended up saying to Javed Akhtar uh, that he was what was the thing? Where did it? The ISIS thing, that he was equating the person sitting there, or if he was not speaking for any particular religion, then he shouldn't be offended, and we'll take him as a person. So he was thinking that he as a person was being equated to ISIS, which was not the aim of Mr. Akhtar's argument. It was saying that your so-called religious zone was permitting this, and hence no rape cases were being registered. Come on. Hmm. And the last thing, final thing, and I finish. There came a place where he says something, Mufti says something about ISIS, and he gets a clap and he falls silent and he goes like this. And he listens to the entire audience clap. This is, you are a young man. Your emotions, your gestures betray your emotions. You don't enjoy these things in a debate. You shouldn't. And then again, coming back to the idea that is debate on religion or on anything meritorious, is there any merit in debate? I personally believe there is none, absolutely none. I don't enjoy debates. But if you were to assign value to debate, it will always be enjoyment of the crowd. No, because that's the only good thing it brings. Nobody ever changed anybody's idea through an argument, let alone a debate, a public debate. People fall silent and they think, okay, today it's your day. One day I will teach you the right path. They don't say, oh my God, this man or this woman or this person has changed me completely. They don't say that. So that is it. This is my 2 cents on Javed Akhtar and Mufti Shamail Nadvi's debate on television.